Some invitations are not rejected all at once. They are left on the counter, they are noticed, then postponed. We mean to respond. We mean to think about it. We mean to make room. But ordinary life keeps moving. The work still needs doing. The field still needs tending. The business still asks for attention. The calendar stays full. And slowly, without meaning to, we treat something meaningful as though it were ordinary. In Matthew 22, Jesus tells a parable about a king who prepares a wedding banquet for his son. The table is ready. The feast has been prepared. The invitation has already gone out. But when the servants come to say that everything is ready, the invited guests refuse. Then, the king sends more servants. The invitation is repeated. There is patience here before judgment. There is generosity before severity. There is a king who keeps calling people toward a celebration they did not prepare for themselves. But some pay no attention. Some go back to their farm. Some go back to their business. That phrase matters. They are not all openly violent. They are not all attacking the king. Some simply disregard the invitation. They make light of it. They treat the king's table as less important than the life they already had planned. And that may be the part of the parable that feels uncomfortably close, because many of us do not think of ourselves as people who reject God. We are not trying to be hostile. We are simply busy, simply distracted, simply waiting for a better time. But in the parable, neglect is not neutral. The invitation was not small. It was not casual. It came from the king, for the wedding of his son. And then the story widens in a surprising way. The king sends his servants out into the roads, not to find the impressive, not to find the prepared, not to find the people who had earned their place. They gather everyone they find, the bad and the good. And the wedding hall is filled with guests. This is one of the most beautiful turns in the parable. The people no one expected are welcomed in. The invitation goes wider than anyone imagined. The banquet is not filled with people who can point to their own worthiness. It is filled because the king is generous. Grace opens the door. But then Jesus gives the story another turn. The king enters and sees a man without a wedding garment. And this is where many readers struggle. Was the man poor? Was he uninformed? Was the king being severe over clothing? Matthew does not tell us that the king supplied every garment, and we should be careful not to say more than the text says. But in the world of the story, the issue is not fashion, it is response. A wedding garment was a way of honoring the occasion. It showed that the guest understood where he was. He had entered a royal celebration for the king's son. He had accepted the place at the table. But he had not responded in a way that honored the invitation. The king asks him how he came in without wedding clothes. And the man is speechless. He does not explain, he does not protest. He is speechless. Within the story, he has no defense. And suddenly, the parable becomes clearer. This man wanted the banquet without honoring the king. He wanted the seat without receiving the meaning of the invitation. He wanted to be present without being changed. He was in the room, but untouched by the meaning of where he stood. That is the warning Jesus gives. Not that grace is narrow, not that the invitation must be earned, but that grace is not something to receive with indifference. The invitation is freely given, but it was never meant to be received casually. This is the reversal. The people who seemed closest to the invitation dismissed it. The people no one expected were welcomed in. But the openness of the invitation did not make the king, the son, or the banquet meaningless. Grace welcomes us freely, but grace does not leave us untouched. And that leaves us with a quiet question. What have I done with the invitation? Not the invitation to appear religious, not the invitation to make myself worthy, not the invitation to prove that I belong, the invitation to receive what God gives, with gratitude, with humility, with an open heart. Some of us are trying to earn our place at the table. We keep trying to make ourselves acceptable enough, clean enough, faithful enough, impressive enough. But the banquet is not entered by self-made worthiness. Others of us may have accepted the language of grace, but kept it at a distance. We want belonging without surrender. We want comfort without change. We want the feast, but not the life that honors the King. Jesus does not tell this parable to crush the weary heart. He tells it to wake the distracted one, to remind us that the invitation is sacred, to remind us that the table is prepared, to remind us that the door has been opened by grace. A simple prayer for this week might be, God, help me receive your invitation with gratitude, humility, and an open heart, not casually, not fearfully, not as something I can earn, but sincerely. Let grace become more than something I acknowledge. Let it become something that changes me. The invitation is still open. The table is still prepared. The King is still calling. And the grace that welcomes you is the grace that refuses to leave you untouched.